What's up, guys? We got Icon piggyback shock. First thing we're going to want to do is release the nitrogen pressure. It's a good idea to have some kind of a bin handy to store whatever it is you're going to be taking off of the shock. Take a Allen key, release the nitrogen, and I'm going to take a valve core tool, pull the valve core out. With that out, I'm going to push down this end cap so I could pull it out. Take your pick, pull off the circlip. Once you've got that out, go ahead and pull the end cap off. This is a tool designed to help pull the end caps off. You want to be careful because sometimes you could break this valve. So personally, what I like to do is I'll take some air, blow some air into the valve. This will push the end cap out. And then from here, take a ruler and measure the IFP up to the top so that when we put the shock back together, we measure that, make sure that that IFP is at the right depth. Then I'm actually going to put this end cap back in. And the reason why I'm putting this end cap back in is because we're going to take the piston and the shaft out of the shock, and with this IFP in here, I could then take a small pump, put some positive pressure in the system to make it a little bit easier for the seal casing and the piston to come out. So we'll go back to the vise. So with the shock on the vise, you're going to take a 3/16 Allen key and loosen the set screw. Once you got that loose, you can take your spanner wrench to get this end cap off. And now the end cap is off. To get the seal casing out of the shock, you're going to want to push down on the seal casing and remove the circlip that's in the shock body. Sometimes you can push the seal casing down by hand. That doesn't work. You could use use the shock to your advantage. Pushing down on the shock shaft will sometimes create enough vacuum to suck the seal casing down. Get a piece of paper towel, clean off whatever you can here. Make sure that's as clean as you can get it. And take your pick and be careful not to scratch the shock body. Take that circlip out. From here, we're gonna go ahead and take off the seal head. Sometimes you can pull up by hand. That doesn't work. I like to get a bike pump. Put a couple of pumps into the reservoir. What this is doing is it's pushing the IFP down, and with the IFP coming down, it then is helping to push out the seal casing. Be careful not to put too much pressure in here, otherwise this will just kind of blow up on you. You just want a little bit of air to kind of help get that out. What's happening right now is on the seal casing there's an O-ring, and that O-ring is kind of getting caught in the groove that we removed the circlip off of. So you just got to get the seal casing, that O-ring that's around the seal casing, over that groove. Since we're going to be changing out the shaft, I'm just going to use a hammer, push that through. I can feel the seal casing kind of come up, so I'm going to take out the air. So this is This is the O-ring on the seal head. This was actually getting caught on this groove over here. With the piston out and the seal head out, we're gonna go ahead and dump the fluid. So we're gonna take the end cap, push that end cap in again, and remove that circlip. Again, making sure not to scratch the inside of the shock. Then I'm going to take my compressed air and blow the end cap out. With the end cap out of the way, you could then take IFP tool and thread that onto the end cap, and you'll pull straight out. Now once you've got everything out, your IFP, your seal head, your end caps, all that's out of the way, you're gonna want to inspect both cylinders and make sure you're not seeing any excessive wear on the inside of the cylinders or any scratches. If that's good to go, you're gonna go ahead and clean off the insides, get rid of all the old oil. We're rebuilding the shock to make it like new. So you wanna make sure that you're putting fresh new oil in, and fresh new oil does not mix well with old oil. That out clean, you take your air and just blow anything out. Make sure it's completely dry. To get access to the seal casing, you're gonna want to take a 11/16 socket to the vent device. You're gonna clamp down and remove the top nut. With the top nut removed, you can then take your valves off of the piston. If you know everything is good, you know all your pistons are fine and your valves are fine, you could just remove this assembly and put it aside so that you know nothing gets mixed up. But what I like to do is I like to make sure everything is okay and clean off the valves individually. So I'm going to place the valves in line so that I could individually inspect them and individually clean them. It's very important that you put everything in the order that you took them off, so that you know just the exact order that it needs to go back in. Because I've already taken off the rears and I wrote down the valving specs on the rears, I'm just gonna go ahead and check these that came off of this shock. Make sure it matches with the one that we did on the other side of the truck.
Show me the tool.
Now that we got the seal head off, on the Icon seal heads, there's three main seals. You have your rubber outer seal here, you have your dust wiper, and then you have your internal oil seal. The dust wiper and the oil seal are a little bit tricky to get out. They are made out of this harder material. This one is your dust wiper, and this one is your main oil seal. These are a little bit tricky to get out because in the seal head's machined and it has grooves that require you to kind of squeeze the seals and kind of fit into the groove. This outer one isn't so bad, but this inner main oil seal is always a little bit tricky. So we'll go ahead and take these out. Careful. So a couple of things. You want to make sure your pick doesn't slide off and scratch this this DU bushing. So just take your time with it. Kind of want to grab it, hook it, pull it out once you've got it to this point. Once you've got the seal kind of in that position, you can take your pick and pull it out the rest of the way. Now, if you weren't paying attention to, or if you're not sure how the seals go into place, with these kind of seals, you'll see they kind of flare out. It's kind of hard to see it, but you kind of see on the inside it kind of has a little bit of a flare that goes in. You want to put the seal in so that whatever you want out of wherever it's going into, or if you want to keep anything in, you want that flare on the seal to face whichever direction you want to keep contained or keep out. So in the case of this seal casing, the seal casing goes into the shock body and your fluid is in here. This is my imaginary shock body. So your fluid is in here. This oil seal is what keeps the fluid in. You want to make sure that this flare is facing up into the seal casing. Using a little bit of assembly grease makes it a little bit easier to slide in. Oil seal in, you just want to make sure that it's sitting in there flush. We'll go ahead and take our dust seal. It's a little bit easier, especially since it's on the outside, but again, we're keeping the dust out, so you want to make sure that this is facing out of the seal head. If you've got that in, you kind of push that into its little home and make sure everything is seated all flush and nice. With the dust wiper in place, we could change out this O-ring. When changing out O-rings, you never want to put in an O-ring dry, so use some kind of lube or shock fluid. Makes the O-ring slide on a little bit better, prevents it from scratching and getting cut up. Take off the O-ring from the IFP, and once you've done your end cap, change out your O-ring on your end cap, your seal head and your IFP, you're done with the seals on your piggyback reservoir shock. The shock did come in with a pretty beat up shock shaft. Sometimes we're able to take an emery stone, and if they're small enough, we could kind of file it down a little bit, make it smooth. But this one is just, you can see it's super bad. So we're gonna replace it with a whole new shaft. If we didn't, as the shaft goes through your dust wiper and your oil seal, those pits and these pits will scratch up the seals. And when that happens, you get your oil leaks. We're gonna go ahead and take the shaft over to the vise. The ends of the shock shafts are thread locked on there. So you're gonna want to take a torch, heat up the shaft and the end, the rod end. What this does is it breaks up the thread lock. Rod end is aluminum, so it'll expand the aluminum and make it easier to get the shaft off of the end. Now that you got your valves cleaned off, your new shaft, you're gonna go ahead and put everything back together. Before clamping everything down, I like to spray it off one more time with some parts cleaner. Once you've got everything all put together, you take your seal head and slide that through. With your seal head in place, you can take some air, 11/16, get that bad boy torqued down. Now, fill this with oil. Before putting the IFP into the reservoir, I'm gonna take some grease and put that on the O-rings. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cover main shock body. Well, first off, I'm gonna fill the fluid, fill the reservoir with fluid, and then take the IFP, push that on, Now what that does is make it so that I don't have to cycle the fluid in and out of the reservoir, because now that the reservoir is a closed system, there's no air here, and the fluid is past the bridge, I can now push the IFP down. That then forces the fluid through the bridge, and if there is any air trapped in the bridge, that air then gets pushed out. That ensures that there is no bubbles down here. So then I could now take my seal head, piston assembly back over here, make sure and bleed the system. So you're gonna want to cycle the piston and the valve stack through until you get no more bubbles. Got the air bled out of the system. You're gonna take your seal casing, slide that down to the piston assembly. Some fluid will be coming out as you're pushing the seal casing down. And take a rag, lock ring. You can then take your ruler, measure your IFP depth, reference your notes that you wrote down earlier. Make sure it matches. IFP is good there, so you take your valve core, take your 3/16 Allen. We could then fill it with the nitrogen. And when that's done, we could then send this off to you guys, or us to install on the truck. Whichever one you want, whichever one makes you feel better. If you're lazy and you have fucking money, send it to us, bring it to us. We'll take them off your truck, rebuild them, put them on the same day. Don't like doing that because we can't do a proper lead down test on it. But if that's what you want, we can go ahead and do that for you, because we know you need your vehicle. All right, so that wraps it up. We are done rebuilding the shock, swapped out the shaft, changed out the seals, made sure everything was clean. You're ready to do it on your own. And if you don't feel comfortable doing it on your own, hit us up, call us, email us, and we can get that done for you.